Welcome to episode 16 of The Endless Stream. I'm Aidan, and I'm joined as usual by Kevin and Brian. We are three artists, illustrators, filmmakers, and all-round shit talkers that each week take some of the endless stream of content brought to us through Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney+, YouTube, Spotify. Wherever you get your content, we take a chunk of it, we watch it, and we talk about it. Given the nature of these conversations, they're very spoiler heavy. So if you haven't watched Loki episode 4, maybe go off and have a look at it and come back to us. This week we also talk about Gundam Hathaway. We talk about My Hero Academia. We talk about Rick and Morty. A lot of ground covered. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to the podcast or giving us a follow over on Instagram. We are at The Endless Cast. If you want to suggest something for us to watch, you can email us at theendlesscast@gmail.com. The Instagram and email are a good way to get involved and see some additional content. All of that being said, let's jump into the conversation. I watched a load of anime today, guys. It is the intermittent occasion where I say that I am animaking an effort to watch cartoons I wouldn't ordinarily watch.
Oh, I love that.
I hate it.
Very good.
I used it once before when I tried to watch Attack on Titan. I watched. I watched the whole series of that thing, and it was just like,
I don't like it.
I watched season 1, started watching season 2. I love Sasquatch, but what the fuck is that?
I don't know what that means. Didn't watch season 2.
There's a Bigfoot in it.
Is there?
It looks like Bigfoot.
Do they say that Bigfoot is one of these titans? But this is like an alternate dimension.
I watched that. I watched season 1 not that long ago, and I have no recollection of it.
It's got some very troubling fascist overtones as well. Not a fan.
We don't like that. We don't like that.
I'm trying to work this out. I understand where the legacy of the production methods and the sense of storytelling comes from, but I do wish a lot of the anime I watch would get on with it. You know? Mm-hmm. It just takes forever to get to the thing, and that's a taste
sometimes
thing. That's true, sometimes, but I guess I do say the anime I watch, so the stuff that I have watched tends to take.
You're talking about My Hero?
My Hero Academia.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into that straight away then, I guess, because I did start with the anime end of things, and we can talk about. We usually sort of start with trailers, but I watched the first 4 episodes of that. That's just funny. I really enjoyed it. We watched the first 4 episodes. I think that's because that's where Kev had got to when he messaged us, and it sort of set a sort of milestone or a bar in or line in the sand for me. I lots and lots of fun. I kids.
I actually lied. I knew that you were going to watch it. I was going to make it up.
So how much of it have you watched?
Well, I watched the intro. Thought that was enough.
You're talking about Hathaway.
It's anime. It's anime. No, I'm talking about fucking My Hero.
My Hero, okay.
So we're supposed to screaming. I got it.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Should we look for a replacement? I mean, if he's not going to take it seriously, I mean, you know. I mean,
I'm hearing lots of love for Kree on the internet.
The assignment was very clear, but
what? This is all I have, guys. Please, I look forward to this at the weekend.
Kev, this is your performance review.
Okay, how am I doing?
Well, you didn't do the assignment.
You didn't do the assignment. That's,
yeah. Get over it. Get over it, guys. What else?
Well, you look good on camera.
That's a lie.
But this is a podcast. So
and I don't have much of a voice for radio.
We all watched My Hero Academia.
Yes.
All Might's fun.
How is he the bad guy?
Is he the bad guy?
All Might's the good guy. What are you on about?
Oh, okay.
Kev.
No, I'm less confused. Yeah, it's a great show.
This. What are you doing, Kevin? You said you loved this.
Yeah, I want to hear his version of this.
Kevin, please explain.
Actually, Kev, you tell us what the show is about. Yeah.
Is All Might not the villain?
Tell us the first 4 episodes.
What makes you think he's the villain?
I thought someone told me that. First 4 episodes.
Talk us through what you watched.
Lots of screaming, lots of crying. It was pretty devastating. His mum wasn't as reassuring. He had to ingest some of All Might.
Did you not enjoy this?
On a beach. I did enjoy it, yeah. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. Some of the characters are super ugly looking. I know that
it's bonkers.
Yeah, some of them are ugly looking, but It is.
I admire, it's kind of one of the things that I think Morrison made a point about the X-Men was that, like, when he wrote his run, that they're supposed to be mutants, and yet for the most part they've been like supermodels with very cool powers.
Yeah, I love that. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like with this. Yeah, I kind of admire that. I do think there's some ideas that should have like stayed in the sketchbook, but I do admire the fact that it's like, what if somebody there's a character that is introduced, I think, in the second season called, I think they're called like the Masked Genist, and they've got like their costume is full denim, and they make things out of denim, and it's fucking bonkers, and they just went with it,
Sorry, they talk about like the best heroes in the show or something. They mention All Might, they mention Endeavor, a guy called Endeavor, they mention somebody else, and then they mention the Max Genus, and it's a guy with his high waisted jeans up to above his nose, with the
up to his face.
It's ridiculous. It's in the show. They mention him.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's always bizarre in shows like this. And I do appreciate it. It's kind of like, I like the way they call it quirks, and I do appreciate it's like very X-Men-y in a sense, which is fine. I'm completely like, it's X-Men doesn't have to be an exclusive idea. Like, people can just be born with powers, and that's fine. I'm sure bloody Stan Lee wasn't the first person to ever had come with that premise, But it's some of the characters. It's like you're watching it, and it's like some of the characters just don't fit into that world aesthetically. Never mind, like kind of like, if they're ridiculous looking, it's just like they look like a completely different art style entirely,
Yeah, and that's one of the things actually is I buy most comics anyway for artwork first, and I think manga is consistently better than most of American comics anyway. I wouldn't say Western because there's a lot of kind of French.
It's the 4th of July. Can you have a little bit more respect, please?
No, I was going to check out the manga, but I'm not a huge fan of the artwork. It's kind of not of the same. Usually I find manga is like consistently, the artwork is always kind of great, and it's not that the artwork is bad, but when I checked it out, it's kind of like you said, Kev, like there's some of the designs are just, they don't even look like that by the same person. I think kind of All Might even kind of represents that, he's supposed to be this kind of, he's supposed to always appear like he's kind of standing in a dramatic shadow or something, and it doesn't really work.
He's an American. He has the American style shading versus every other character now that doesn't have it.
Yeah, and there's there's two kind of films from the series on Netflix as well.
I'm gonna try and watch all of it, to be honest.
The one, I think there's one called, I can't remember the names of them, but there's one isn't great, but it is good for the opening scene and the end scene. The animation in it is superb, but the great thing about the opening scene is you get to see All Might before he was wounded by One for All, the other character. So he's younger.
What is another character?
Yes. But
you're further in than we are, I think, because I thought One for All was the name of his power.
There's One for All, but he's the wound that he shows that he's got. Yeah. That's from
Starfish.
A character. Basically, there's an opposite power to One for All. Oh. So One for All is all these powers kind of combined, and the idea basically the opposite side of that power is called All for One, and it's this villain who kind of steals other people's quirks. So he's kind of like the opposite to All Might, and that's that wound that he has, that gnarly looking wound. It was in his last battle with him, and it's kind of. It's this kind of permanent injury that he has. But in one of the films that's on Netflix now as well, it's really cool because it shows All Might in his kind of younger years before he had that wound. And it's really nice to see how they interpreted the character design without that kind of American style shading in it. And it's a nice interpretation of it. That film, I can't remember, there's two of them on the moment.
I think there's more than two,
check the names later. I think there's only 2 My Hero films at the moment. But there's more than 2, but there's only 2 on Netflix at the moment.
Yeah, that was some of the trouble of watching this stuff this week, where it was just like especially with Gundam, I went Gundam, and then 15 titles showed up, and I'm like, which one are we watching? Yeah. There was a little bit of that with My Hero, but the first 4 episodes are just meeting
Deku.
Izuku? Deku?
This is another thing about the show that I found really hard to follow is the characters have like a superhero name, their name, and then the nicknames that they refer to each other by. And I've watched loads of anime, and I found it tricky to keep track of. His name is
Izuku or something. It's like that.
Is Midoriya Izuku is his like full name,
yeah.
but then his kind of rival calls him Deku. It's supposed to be an insult, but that he ends up kind of using that as his
moniker,
his hero name.
Okay.
But then the other guy there's Kachan, which is his nickname for him, and there's Bakugo, and then he's got another name as well. I can't remember it.
Kubu or something, is it?
Yeah, I found it. I found that tricky enough.
So we meet this character who is a person without a quirk. He has no superpowers.
He has bones in his toes.
He has 2 joints in his pinky, which indicates that he is not one of the new evolution. Pinky toe. New evolution of...
Baby toe.
You okay?
It's baby toe. Who says pinky toe?
Aiden, clearly.
Baby toe. What do you say, Brian?
I don't know. Toe.
All right, you're an adult. Anyways, next question.
That's the first clip of the week.
Don't do it.
He is getting bullied because he doesn't have superpowers, and everybody in the world has superpowers, and he wants to be a hero, and he's really sad because he can't be a hero.
To be honest, that scene where his mum does kind of wish that it was different, or sorry, she says something to him, and it's like, it was a sad scene, and it's like it is a little bit brutal, and he remembers it, say, once throughout one of the episodes, and then it just comes up like 4 or 5 times, and it's just, I like anime, but I think like, I don't know, it's just so repetitive. It's like sometimes like reading an old comic book from the 70s, it has to constantly explain exactly what's going on.
That was my look, we're picky animation nerds, and Brian doesn't seem to even care. But like I watched the first episode and I went, oh, this is cool, and then the second episode I was like, oh, that's from the first episode, and that's from the first. Okay, we're starting to reuse.
I don't understand the show's popularity. For me, I personally think like there's half a good show in there, and then the other half is like, what is this? And it does suffer from that kind of anime thing where it's just, there's a lot of filler.
Yeah,
it stretches stuff out a
lot. Tune in next week.
I started watching around the same time as One Punch Man, and I much preferred One Punch Man.
One Punch Man is
moves along faster.
It moves faster while at the same time doing everything we're giving out about, but doing it like to take the piss out of it. Yes, there's a scene in One Punch Man where you literally just watch a bug very slowly crawl a couple of steps, like it's less than a centimeter the bug moves, and we're like, there's no way that's not a fucking dig at the time wasting that happens in anime. But that's part of why I really liked it, was very very aware of its own medium, and not that it was disrespectful of it, but it was just it was a good commentary of it. It was nice to go, okay, I'm not nuts here. They're aware that this can be a bit staid. Without powers, he manages to act heroically and help in aiding a superpowered friend, actually saving the bully, and All Might is impressed by this and offers to train him and pass on his superpower to him. I
really liked that slime monster. Sorry, I thought that slime monster looked awesome. Some of the stuff in it's cool, some of it's really rogue, but that slime monster was a great idea and a cool concept, and he looked great. Sorry.
No, cool. No, it is cool. Like the first time I saw All Might deflated, I did laugh. I thought that was quite funny. He's such a drippy, because there was part of me that's like, what is? I mean, the world is not. Anime is not unique in this. The world kind of has this fixation as well, but like American character as the all-powerful idol in the place, and it was kind of nice to go, oh, but also he's completely deflated. Like there's this sort of bright, shiny, superficial surface layer to All Might that is.
I don't think he's American though.
Texas Smash and Detroit Smash.
He names the moves, those things, but I don't think he's actually. I think he's again inspired by American heroes and stuff. Yeah, but no, I mean your point still stands though, like because he's still very much an American inspired or emblematic of, kind of American
Tropes.
heroes. Yeah.
Oh, and then deep down, he's just this.
A
He might
villain.
be I mean, spoilers? I don't know. I haven't watched that far yet. I'm not
I
even
don't know. Neither have
culturally
I.
aware. You've just put it on people's skin a bunch.
Are you? Maybe someone was telling you about the powers that, like, the kind of main villain is this. He's got this kind of opposite power. Maybe that's what you're.
One for all and all for one. I see what they did there.
Anyway,
So what's the verdict on My Hero Academia then, right? I mean, there's some really cool stuff in it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the 4 episodes. It had everything I expect from anime in terms of being bored by repetition. But there were big fun characters.
It's worth sticking with it for it. Like I said, that there's maybe like 60% of like a really kind of great stuff in there, and then there's a lot of other stuff like that grape juice character. I understand their part. I don't know if you got maybe that far.
No.
This is a really fucking annoying, creepy, pervy character, and it's just kind of a joke character, but they spend so much time with him as well at the same time. Anyway, point being, I think there's elements of a really, really great story and things in there, and it's worth sticking with for those, I think. Yeah, I think if you like it enough to watch it as far as you did, it's worth sticking with, because, and as it goes on, there's some superb animation in some of the storylines that come up, and it's worth it for those alone.
Have you watched?
That's always.
Have you? You've obviously.
I've
watched. a lot of it, right?
I've watched 3 seasons of it, I think.
What was there was a show that used to be on like CNX or maybe even Fox Kids or something at that point. But it was like
Oh, you boys fancy.
All Muscle or something Muscle, like the wrestling thing. Did you ever see that?
The wrestling one, yeah.
What's that called?
I can't remember.
Like, there was a bit of that popping into my head when I watched it, where it was just like, this is taking the piss out of itself enough that I find this very funny. When you want to use my powers, be sure to squeeze your buttocks and in your heart scream the word smash. I think I enjoyed it.
I was just saying, I'm definitely going to finish watching it. I think what Brian said, it really kind of hit the nail on the head there, as in like there is a good show in it, but there's just a lot of just kind of nonsense, and then aspects of it are fairly repetitive. But I was going to say, I'll watch it. I think it's sometimes when I watch animes, I like some of the supporting characters a lot more than the actual main character. Main characters in animes quite frequently kind of always struggle to acknowledge the possibility that they have some sort of potential and then reach that full potential. And it can be just, it's just like, we have another character that just, he's weak compared to all the other main people. He's at a disadvantage because he's probably didn't have the same background or skills. But here, look, I'm watching it. I'm enjoying it. There's characters I enjoy. In Invincibles, you had the taffy belly guy. Remember the guy with the octopus or the
yeah.
And like, I can say that's stupid, but I liked it. The guy with the
I liked
laser
that
belly
character
button.
in the comic. I liked how weird he looked.
But then, like in My Hero Academia, you have the laser belly button guy, and it's just like, why would you create a character with a laser belly button, like, and it burns his belly when if it goes longer than 3 minutes or something?
I haven't got that far. I just saw him in like a silk shirt and a belt, but I guess I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
that character's hilarious.
Well, fair. It's early days, but yeah.
I mean, it's basically Cyclops, right?
Yeah, but this is the thing I was saying about it. Like that, that's
so true.
Kind of what I like is that there's ideas in it where it's just like, yeah, fuck it, that's good enough. That's going in.
Yeah, well, like, I might appreciate it more if I take that aspect, or if I take that perspective on it. Fair. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep going with this.
Hathaway.
This thread. My Hero Academia is a watch from me. Give it a go. It's lots of fun. I'm introducing a new rating system that we haven't before. Watch, delete, rewind, pass, skip it, or eat lunch with it. There's 5 different.
I feel like you should have discussed this with us before we went on the podcast.
I'd say watch it. It's good fun. Not that I need to tell the world to watch My Hero Academia. It seems to be doing fine.
Yeah, I'm going to carry on watching it. I'm enjoying it.
I'm assuming you guys are both in a side WhatsApp chat talking about me. Because I'm just looking at two bearded fucks hiding behind a microphone just looking down at their phones.
I'm just so warm. I'm wearing a hoodie and I just want to, and I should have worn a t-shirt.
Tarps off, boys.
You saw that last week. You don't want to see that again.
Tarps off, boys. We're going to have a Donnybrook.
You take your top off first. No, don't, Aiden.
Okay.
You have a lovely t-shirt on.
Because you knew I would.
Yes. Not to have an issue with that. It beats the drinking and the knife play.
So, I just got done watching... When you put it like that. I just got done watching Gundam Hathaway. I remember trying to watch... Was it CNX was the channel? That just played...
Toonami?
I grew up
that showed Gundam.
Was it Toonami that showed Gundam?
I think it was Toonami.
Okay, that makes more sense to me. That was pre-CNX. I remember, like, when that started, going, "This looks cool. This is giant robots. I know this is a big thing. I've seen it in comic book shops. I'm kind of aware of it culturally, even though it's not something that Irish people are aware of. I see pictures of it in pop culture. I recognize that robot. Let's watch this show." And I watched it for a solid week, double episodes on Toonami, and nothing happened. It's cool opening credits, and a kid was going to school, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? I fell off of that. I knew there was something there, but they didn't have enough episodes to not be just repeating the same ones as well.
It's interesting because when I started watching it, assuming that we're talking about the same one, maybe they showed a different one for a while. I was surprised by how much happened in it week to week. So maybe it was a different one. Maybe it wasn't.
I got
Gundam
a bad
Wing.
week.
I'm not sure.
Maybe I got a bad week.
Yeah, maybe.
I just was trying to watch it going, I know this is a thing. I know there's something here to like. I can see from the opening credits there's some badass shit in this thing somewhere. But I'm getting the wrong episodes of it. Even then I'm like, this is boring.
In the one I watched, there was 4 pilots. So there was 4 kind of unique Gundam mobile suits.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember every episode you kind of got to see at least one of them in action.
Right.
So, yeah. So I don't know if that was the same one. Maybe
I don't know. I got a bad week then.
Might not have been.
So can you lay out this bag of snakes and let us see what's going on here? What is the history of Gundam? Because there's so much of it on Netflix. It's kind of hard to.
I have no idea. I remember
because we said we were going to watch Gundam, and I immediately put on the one from 1981, and then you said check out Hathaway. It's slick, and I went, okay, I guess that's the one we're going to talk about. But I'll let you tell me here.
Yeah. So kind of similar to what you were saying. Like I would have read, there was a magazine called Manga Mania that I would have picked up, and there would have been like kind of snippets of manga comics and stuff in it. But it was also about just like what's coming out. It was a very kind of thorough manga anime thing. So I would have seen a lot of Gundam stuff before I'd ever, watched an episode or knew what it was about, because I think one of the first times I'd heard of it, they had commissioned a bunch of artists to do their interpretations of a Gundam. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the fuck is a Gundam? Like, why? There's all these crazy different versions of... It was for some promotional event, and I was reading this article, and I still had no idea, like, what the fuck is a Gundam? Mm-hmm. So it's been around since the late 70s. Mm-hmm. A huge part of it is the plastic kits. That's one of the main kind of streams of revenue from the thing is, I'm sure you've seen those.
I watched a TikTok. I swear to God, some people make a minute feel like an hour, but it was just like, here's how I make my Gundam pieces look mirror sheen shiny. And I watched him talk about put it in a sonic bath, sanded, clear coated, resanded, spray paint, airfound, leveling mix. And there were 15 fucking steps, and in my head the whole time I was just like, just have a wank and go to sleep.
Jesus.
So it's a space opera, essentially. Part of the appeal of it is that it does have kind of some... It's not quite like a hard science fiction, but there's elements of it. Or like I think you might have remembered there's a line in Hathaway where they say something like, "Oh, it's got a Minovsky flight system," and apparently that's a real physics-based thing, or they've based the flight system on something like that. But essentially, it's a space opera. It's kind of a military thing it's kind of a bit grounded, but then it also has these big, massive mobile suits. Essentially, it's about kind of humanity has traveled and kind of, made colonies around space, and it's about a war then between humans, like the humans kind of still on Earth, and just kind of these rebellions that happen in colonies and stuff like that. But the franchise has been around since, like I said, the late 70s. So there's a lot of installments in it are set in different times in like this kind of established timeline. There's kind of parts that are kind of the origin stuff, and then there's a rebellion. Hathaway is set shortly kind of after this rebellion that happened, but then there's a kind of a timeline which is a couple of years later, or maybe hundreds of years later, which is like after kind of colonies and stuff like that. But essentially it's always about it's conflict between humans, either
colonial civil war.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And then there's always there's these kind of, typical mecha suits of armor. There's kind of mass-produced ones, and then there's always a Gundam, which is usually kind of more of a newer or a prototype thing, and it's much more limited production.
Okay, can you explain that to me then, right? Because what is the weight around the word Gundam? Because they said it a couple of times in Hathaway. They only said the word a couple of times. They definitely looked about mobile suits, but then a couple of times they went, "Oh, Gundam," and I was like, "Okay, what's differentiating these two things?"
It depends on the version or the timeline you're kind of reading, but it has to do with, like I said, the Gundam is usually it's something that's limited production. So for whatever reason, it's a kind of it could be the engineer or the scientist who designed it, has only kind of worked in kind of limited capacity or for whatever reason. So that always kind of becomes it'd be like kind of in the same way where there was like an arms race and, people were kind of fighting for like particular scientists or physicists were kind of, working between the US or the Soviet Union. Kind of in that same way that the people who can design Gundams based on, could be the armor type or it could be the type of gun it has. The kind of like laser weapon and stuff like that is just harder to produce effectively. For some reason, it's either a prototype thing or that it's just what it's made from. It could be the armor, or it could be the flight system, or it could be the type of weapons it has. Just aren't as easily mass produced, basically.
So in vape terms, we're talking about a bespoke mod, yeah?
Yeah, that'd be right. Okay. Yeah. That's exactly
That's
it.
kind of it, isn't it? Yeah. So it's the outlier machine is the Gundam, or they're specific.
Yeah, and
just...
I think where originally came from. Again, this is kind of like I said, wordplay is a kind of a prominent thing in a lot of manga and anime. But I think originally the idea was it was a combination of the word gun and freedom.
Okay.
Because it was about these freedom fighters that would, the idea being that if they had a weapon powerful enough or a gun powerful enough, they'd be able to kind of stand against these oppressive forces. So they were freedom fighters with this. The suit itself wasn't necessarily always the unique element. It was the gun or the weapon that the suit had. So it was this kind of a portmanteau of
the last line of defense,
gun and
freedom.
Because of freedom fighters, and then they changed it to Gundam. The idea being that, like a dam, being a barrier to
balance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
So that's where the word actually comes from. Is that so? The idea being then that if somebody had a Gundam, one Gundam is enough to kind of
protect the colony,
or change the kind of
flow of the river,
or the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of where the word comes from. So that's very often, every time you watch it, that's essentially the main thrust of the action, is that if they have this weapon, it's enough to kind of stand against it. But then very often both sides have a Gundam, and it comes down to the kind of classic
dogfight
manga anime thing. Yeah.
Then let's talk about specifically Gundam Hathaway.
It's beautiful.
It's stunning. It is stunning. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like Kev was talking about sort of anime protagonists, and the way, I guess, some of the language you were using was alluding to, I guess, a degree of like over melodramaticness. Well, melodramatic covers the over bit introspection, a lot of self-doubt.
Doubt,
This character has all of that.
Oh, it sounds so much better when you say it.
Noah Hathaway has all of that, but it's played beautifully. It's performed really nicely. It's a lovely balance. He is a character that acts, deals with his self-doubt, isn't screaming for any fucking reason. I know it's a different tone piece altogether, but you know, he has everything that you would expect of an anime protagonist, but it's played really, really nicely. The animation is it's fucking gorgeous. There's an opening sequence which is a hijacking of a passenger ship from the moon to Earth, and it's like heavily 2001 Space Odyssey influenced, whether or not 2001 is influenced by whatever else, but like in terms of that passenger ship of like locking down drinks and pens, and like you see I see a lot of nods to it. But when it kicks off, when the action goes, I want to go back and watch it frame by frame. It's lovely.
I watched it and then watched it. Like I did go back and rewatch it because it was just so cool looking. It's awesome looking. It was brilliant. I only watched up until the opening credits, and then I realized, oh my god, this is a movie, not a TV show. That happens to me quite a lot. But it's great looking though.
Well, I think we've there's an element of that confusion as well with the whole Gundam franchise for me, because we see that in things like Neon Genesis as well. Like that was a series, but then they just went,
There's so many versions.
let's compile that.
There's so many.
Is that the same?
No,
Is that the same show?
No,
but
no.
but it was a series, and then they went, here's a lot of episodes. Let's compress this into a movie, and so those are on Netflix.
And then they
well.
re-edited them, and
then they remade them.
Yeah.
So I have no idea where to start with Neon Genesis. Like,
just start with the TV show.
The episodic show?
Yeah.
But the movies are supposed to be the series compressed to what's relevant.
I can't remember the order of this. They were always kind of behind schedule or under budget or something. So they took a really experimental approach with the end of it. And I wouldn't even, like, I've seen a lot of people justify it. I wouldn't recommend it. To me, it was just kind of very pretentious, very experimental.
You told me about that before.
It's worth looking at to see what they did, but not in terms of following the story or anything, because to me it was just a complete cop-out. Right. Talking about that kind of...
It's a Game of Thrones horse.
Talking about the stuff you were kind of referencing earlier, there's also like a very famous scene in an episode where there's like two characters in an elevator, and they just stand in the elevator and they say nothing to each other, and people are like, oh, it's so good. It's like, it's not. It's just
I got 20 minutes to fill.
Yeah, basically, you know. But so they then watch the series, kind of see if you like it. The end of it, then like I said, there's this very experimental approach, and then they kind of wrapped it up properly, and then you can kind of watch a version that kind of condenses a lot of it. But I would still just kind of watch the TV show. It's pretty short. It does kind of have, you know, whether you find it to be a lot of filler or not will depend on whether you're into the tone of the show. It's very much an exploration of the creator's own like depression, essentially. So a lot of the kind of the tone of it, as much as you can say that it's them just kind of filling time, it is also kind of about
establishing the tone.
A mood and stuff. Yeah. But no, it's not the same as Gundam.
No, but I only mentioned it to bring the idea of like these shows there's so much material that has been reinterpreted and re-edited and redistributed. Like even just down to the concept of like at a certain point when they were trying to get Japanese animation as something viable in the United States, they would just cut and re-edit the audio of things and send them over. Not saying that they did it with Neon Genesis, not saying they did it with Gundam, just mentioning it as a thing that just definitely happened. Like, Gundam Hathaway, it's... My only problem is I did get to the end of it and go, okay, so they know there's more of these coming, and they're just setting up.
It's based on 3 novels, I think, that came out in the early to mid 80s. So they're deciding to adapt those. So it's it ends very abruptly.
It ends very abruptly, and
it's very much part one of a 3-part movie.
All like that whole film, as much as I was enjoying it and going, oh, this is lovely, I did reach a point where I went, oh, this is just, here's 3 characters meeting each other and Hathaway getting to his base. Like, this should have been the opening sequence. You know, they could have got through this much faster.
It's it's more like a mini series than a movie.
Okay,
which I don't mind if the 3 parts kind of came out closer together, but the probably time between them, it's not a feature-length movie. I mean, it might be as long as one, but it's I think it's designed to be digested as a mini series and not necessarily.
Right.
But at the same time, I love that something like it exists. Like it's so pretty.
The battle,
I could just watch it forever.
The battle outside the hotel when the Gundams are fighting and he's running around the streets, it's so impressive.
Yeah, and I think in the past as well, just kind of it being a product of like being like the one, I think we probably saw the same one. Maybe you just didn't catch any good episodes, but there was always like a space battle in it, and very often it's in space, and like I said, it's usually one thing versus 100 like identical looking things.
Lots of explosions,
and it's just lots of explosions in space. It was cool to see it on Earth and see the devastation caused by these 2 things kind of fighting.
Yeah, from the ground level. There's a lovely moment in it where he's like, because I know Kevin, I don't know if you intend to go back and watch it, and I don't necessarily think this is spoilers, but there's a moment where he's running with a whole bunch of people, and he just looks ahead of him and he sees somebody, and he's like, I don't know what this is. At least at that point in the film, I didn't know if that person was friend or foe or where it was going, but he goes, that doesn't look right, and his decision change and goes the other way into danger, seemingly. I don't know, it was a lovely moment of reading it, because as much as he's capable, and they established that from the very beginning, and I don't know if I should know this from previous films or something, you don't know what his skill set really is. He does seem kind of unassuming for the most part of it, and it's a little bit like seeing sort of, Matt Damon in Jason Bourne before you see what Jason Bourne can do. It's just like, he's just the skinny dude, and then shit happens and you're like, oh, holy crap, capable. I was very impressed with it. I just did get to the end of it and went, well, what the fuck was the point of any of this?
It's very abrupt. It's so abrupt.
Yeah.
It's a Netflix anime film?
They've acquired the rights for it, I believe. Yeah, I think it was in production before they came on board, but Netflix have decided they want to be in the Gundam business. They're making a live action. I think Brian K. Vaughan is actually writing the scripts for their live action version. So it's interesting.
Brian K. Vaughan sounds like some fancy version of us.
It does.
That's why I'm here.
Brian and K. Vaughan.
Here.
K. Vaughan McNamara.
There is a Gundam and coffee shop in Dublin on Capel Street, and it's just Gundam and coffee.
Really?
Yep.
I've never seen that.
Check out their Instagram.
I think I went to a Gundam and coffee shop in Japan, in Tokyo.
They definitely have more than one in Japan.
But I think I specifically went, hey, this is a thing. Let's go to this. And I went to it and I was like, yeah, this is a giant robot. I don't know what this is, but it's a thing.
I don't know if you guys know who Pablo Uchida is, but they're a phenomenal Japanese artist, and they did the character designs for Hathaway. Okay. So they usually do posters and things like that. They're almost, I don't want to say this exactly, but it's kind of a shorthand maybe for people who aren't familiar. They might kind of get it, but they're almost like a Japanese Drew Struzan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Struzan or Struzan? I've always hit that A at the end of it.
I'm not sure. I've never said it out loud.
Oh.
That's the thing, yeah. I don't think I've ever said it.
For anyone that doesn't know, the Back to the Future, the Indiana Jones posters, the Harry Potter posters, Masters of the Universe poster, Adventures in Babysitting, the Goonies. What else can we think of? The Hellboy poster Del Toro commissioned. He's just the artist of the last 40 years.
Runner.
Blade Runner
as well?
Yeah.
But yeah, Pablo Uchida, I kind of primarily knew them from their kind of poster type work, but check them out. They're amazing. They did the character designs for Hathaway, and they're just gorgeous. I love it. I don't know if
Coffee and Gundam is closed, actually.
it's closed.
Like it's closed down. It's gone. Okay.
Yeah. Another casualty of COVID.
So I guess what's our verdict on Gundam Hathaway then? Mine is watch, but don't invest too heavily because there's not much to take away from it other than it's stunning.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
I hold out hope then that once there's another 2 chapters to this thing, it'll be satisfying.
I think
to watch,
will.
But
I think it will because, like I said, the books have been around quite a while, so they've got quite a clear roadmap for the beats that they want to kind of happen in the story. This was very much like a pilot almost for a series, in that there's some main players that they introduce.
But they can't maintain that standard for a series.
Exactly, but that's what I mean in terms of the
Invincible could.
I mean, undeniably, Invincible is hitting on all the same cylinders as Gundam Hathaway. Its animation is top notch.
You know what?
And can't be questioned.
Funnily enough, there is the interrogation scene is like a noticeable dip in the quality, I thought. Did you?
Yeah.
Pick up on that?
The last.
It reminded me of Invincible. There's the shadows and stuff in it. I was just like, oh god, it's like.
Yeah, he hits the ground and he's just
clearly
moving
rushed.
away too much, and I'm like,
yeah,
stop.
It looked like Invincible.
Because I was looking for some of the stuff we've talked about, where you said that, like, done right, the Japanese animation style is very economical.
It's better at doing those complex
with
designs
when it moves. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I was looking at this going, this is moving when it has to, but there's also clearly so much money here that they can move when they want to.
Yes.
As well. That's the other thing of it. That's part of why it's so stunning, is that it's moving very judiciously to emphasize the moments of the scene so it looks amazing, but they also don't hesitate to move.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the fairest comparison because it's got like a feature budget, but I think, you look at something like Cowboy Bebop, where you've got these beautiful designs and you can just hold on the character for as long as you need to because the design is complex enough that you just draw it well and you hold on it. And I think that's the mistake something like Invincible makes, where it's got these great complex designs, but it obviously doesn't have the time to it's overreaching, and it's I do feel bad because I'm always like heavily critical on that kind of stuff.
I will say, take a moment, go back and watch the last shot of Hathaway when he walks out of onto the deck of the ship and walks away.
Yeah,
there's clearly a lot of reference and rotoscope going on.
Yeah,
that is ropey.
Yeah.
I know like that's just picking at like a loose thread at the end of a very gorgeous tapestry.
It's ropey compared to the rest of it. Yeah,
like that one, oddly enough, does look like somebody traced over a person and then drew Hathaway's face on the sort of skin shape.
It looks exactly like that.
It looks really odd.
It looks like they drew the character's head model on something they rotoscoped. It does.
Okay, check out Gundam Hathaway. It's on Netflix. So is My Hero Academia. They've added a lot of anime stuff in the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to keep going with Gundam. I want to look at the Gundam 1981 stuff. I started watching it before I put saw your
very
message.
old.
They're very old, and that's kind of why I wanted to watch them first.
Yeah.
Because even like we've got sweeping shots across space stations, and I'm like flashing back to Steve Woods in year one of animation, going, should have done this camera move on twos, because you're just doing a live camera across a drawing, and it looks like it, and it's like that looks a bit weird. Whereas if you do the like 2 frame by frame incremental measure, it feels like a camera move as opposed to just moving your camera over an image.
Yeah,
there's a little deep cut. Animation knowledge for you. Shout out to Steve Woods, an avid listener who is always plugging the show in the college. Yeah. Steve Woods, big fan.
Is that true?
No,
didn't think so.
So you watched Trece?
I think Trace.
Trace.
Trace. I don't know. Trace.
Treze, actually.
No, I think it's Tracy.
It's rude.
Yeah, watched it. You know, like with a lot of stuff, it's things don't usually have my full attention, so I kind of need to give it another watch. I've watched.
First, tell us what it is and where it is.
It's set in Manila, and it's about sort of a John Constantine type character. There's essentially a pact between the kind of supernatural world and the human world in Manila, and I think a lot of the kind of things she goes up against are from kind of Filipino folklore and stuff like that.
So this is an animated feature on Netflix.
It's a show.
It's a show. Okay.
It's a show. 6 episodes. Yeah.
TRESSE. Tracy.
One S, I think.
TRESE. Tracy. Okay, so it's kind of like supernatural detective.
Supernatural detective kind of, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I kind of liked it more than I expected. I won't go into the kind of the animation critique because we know where I stand on that kind of stuff. But
you stand on a high horse.
I'm on a high horse about it, and I don't mean to be, but it's just I again, it's not the artists and stuff like that. I would just prefer that if they're making this stuff, that they would just do it. I think too often places treat it like an easy win for like creating content. It's like, you know, we can they obviously, you know, they've got tight schedules and not spending enough money and stuff, and animation is fucking hard. And I would just love if they were making this stuff to actually make it's why I like Hathaway, is that it's just such a nice production. It's why I like the Studio Mir stuff. They're overworked, but you know, it always looks great despite the fact that they're probably overworked and underpaid. So I won't kind of discuss the kind of aesthetic side of it too much, but I will say it probably does it better than other stuff in that it doesn't overreach, I guess. So kind of looks more consistent. And then the tone of the story was kind of more serious than I was expecting.
Okay.
So I kind of liked that. There was another show that came out a year ago maybe that I tried to get into and I couldn't. I think it was Seis Manos. Have you seen that?
That's a powerhouse production, the sort of Mexican.
I'm not sure.
Luchador kung fu.
Yeah, I tried to get into that and I couldn't, and that's just more to do with
because they did Blood of Zeus as well and Castlevania.
Yeah, and it was more the
and Masters
it was
of the
more
Universe.
the story. Yeah, I think it was more the storyline in that I couldn't get into, but also partially the kind of the same problem with the artwork and stuff. They might even be behind Tracy, I'm not sure, because there is similarities. But yeah, it's just kind of about this.
I think I'd know if it was them because
Okay.
I do follow their stuff and I like their stuff a lot. Like what they're doing. I would like to go to Texas and please work there, please. Hire me. I want to go and complain about the heat, and you know the I want to be in those conversations where we talk about the failing infrastructure and the increasingly hard winters and the bad water supply system that leaves people without. Actually, do you know what? Maybe Texas isn't a good idea. It seems to be falling apart.
Probably not a great idea.
No.
Yeah, no, I just looked it up. I think it's Base Entertainment is the production company. But yeah, it's I kind of liked I just like the idea, for one. It's nice to see a different location. I'm always really into folklore from different parts of the world and things like that. So it's nice to see a show that
it's bringing us
is kind of a modern day setting, but like how would it interact with the folklore? So it's very Hellboy, very kind of Hellblazer. So again, it didn't have my full attention. I did watch all 6 episodes, but it was kind of, it was, I wasn't fully tuned into it. Most of the stuff we discuss, I kind of watch 2 or 3 times anyway, So I've only watched it the once, but it was better than I expected. If you like either Hellblazer or Hellboy, or
sounds awesome,
or even stuff like Buffy or something, you know, because it's kind of a female demon hunter type thing. It's worth a look. Yeah, it's only 6 episodes.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Sounds awesome. I think it's not like a movie or something on it as well of the same thing.
I don't think so.
Maybe
I don't think so.
So I think that's the extent of our anime corner.
Long may it continue.
No, thank God we don't do this every week. My word.
Wow.
There's so much of it.
Wow.
It's endless almost.
Pardon?
It's part of an endless stream.
It is.
Drink.
Endless
Oh
stream.
God. Drink. Aiden, please don't actually drink. No.
Good man.
Did you watch Rick and Morty?
Yes.
Nay.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes.
This week's episode sees Rick and the family dealing with the rise of sentient decoy families. So Rick created a decoy family to protect himself from anybody that may or may not want to hurt his family, but that decoy family made decoy families, and those decoy families made decoy families, and it's Rick realizing that he's managed to sort of photocopy his family unit 10,000 times, and nobody knows who the real Rick, Morty, or indeed the family is. So it's a great excuse for them to just blow shit out of each other in increasingly weird combinations. The only reason I'm bringing it up here specifically, we have been talking about the new season of Rick and Morty, but there just hits a point in it where they said, we're entering into a Highlander situation here, guys. There can only be one. And then he stops and the family stares at him. Good. And he goes, Highlander? Nobody? 1986? Sean Connery plays the Spaniard but does nothing about his act. So it's good to see that the Rick and Morty writers staff are listening to the endless stream before they write their episodes.
Yes.
To get a proper analysis of the movie from 1986. And then it ends with some nice...
Did they watch Night Moves though?
I mean, I think the Night Moves episode is coming up where they're going to play a degree of galactic chess with a...
Chess, yeah. I mean, if we see them play chess...
This Rick and Morty episode, actually. There's a writer's development program. I can't remember who it's associated with now that I think about it. It might be Nickelodeon. There's a writer's development program, and I was looking at it, and they want sample scripts from people, and they put up a list of shows that they want. Like, we want a spec script from you in one of these styles, one of which is Rick and Morty, and I think a Lambert centered Night Moves focused Rick and Morty episode wouldn't be a bad shout if you had to write a spec Rick and Morty.
Alright, let's do it.
I mean, okay,
do it.
Let's us do it.
I mean, yeah, okay, fuck it. I've got nothing but time. I have no time. I'm going to go from recording this to editing this to drawing an image to creating Instagram posts to creating audio clips in the next 10 hours.
I tried to draw based on the stuff I watched, and I just couldn't
really
do anything. Yeah,
I'm going to have to draw Gigi.
I think you have to. I think you should.
I got to draw Gigi.
I think I need that image by the end of the day, or early tomorrow morning at the latest, so that I can fold it into the mix. You're on a deadline now. You got a commission.
I'm on a deadline. I got to do it.
Yeah, put a post-it note on the wall. I don't know if it was the circumstances in which I was watching the episode of Rick and Morty, but we've switched to your webcam on your laptop.
Should have switched back now.
We have, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
A lot of post-it notes on your wall?
Yes, I have a lot of... I have whiteboard paper, which I highly recommend, and it's a good way to just... Anytime I'm doing stuff, I just get up and...
An agile project management system?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Sorry.
Into the life of Brian. The life of Bri. It was a good episode. It was a bit disposable to me because, like, spoilers for episode 2 of Rick and Morty, like, you do get to the end of it and you see Rick and Morty and the family in the spaceship coming back from the last episode of season 4.
They do a reset, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, you see them in a ship going, that was a great space adventure. We even met Space Beth. And it's like, okay, so that's the end of season 4. So last week's episode with Mr. Nimbus, that was a decoy family as well. So it's kind of
presumably, yeah.
It was a little bit of like I'm losing track of who anyone is. Now, if Rick and Morty's pretty good about that sort of thing, so I'm introducing something you think is throwaway, but then kind of like it is layered into the narrative of the universe they're building.
It's also kind of a mistake
Rick coming back
to watch. It's also, I think, though, a mistake to watch it and expecting it to pay off, because I think they're trying to avoid the whole thing with Evil Morty as well. I think it was probably in there as a thing like this is possible in the context of the show, that there could be an Evil Morty, but now fans, a lot of fans, not all fans, but watching it to kind of see, they want to see how that plays out. Yeah.
People
that's going to
want
end.
to put a long term, like he's got a plan from day one. It's like, no, he doesn't.
Yeah, and they've even addressed it in the Story Train episode where they're facing off against the army of Meeseeks and Ricks, and there's Evil Morty, and they even addressed the fact that like this is what people want to see. This is like the ultimate end, and it's just like they have no intention of really doing that, you know.
I missed that Story Train episode last year. I only watched it there on Tuesday.
Oh, really?
I was scrolling back through it and I went, what the fuck is this one? And I had not seen it. It's good. It was a fun episode. It just felt a bit disposable. The stuff with Jerry at the end was really, really fucking funny, like the post-credit scene.
I think Alison Brie is in the next episode as a kind of a Captain
Planetina
pastiche. Yeah. I think it's Alison Brie. It sounds like her. She's got a pretty recognizable voice, so I'm assuming it's her.
But the woman from the
woman from the Community.
Annie, yeah.
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 That's her, right?
Annie. There's 2 other women.
Yes, but like if I'm to say, is she from the Community, then it's like, yes, I don't have to specify which one she is, because obviously I know which one
but
she is.
for the listeners, I was saying it's Annie.
One of our listeners texted me this week.
I keep looking at the analytics and going, there is somebody in Belgium listening every week.
Shout out to Belgium.
Love your waffles. Sorry about the match.
Sorry about the football match with Italy. I only know they played because of TikTok.
I also saw
that couple.
So
the same TikTok.
What's this?
There's a couple on TikTok, and she just keeps winding up her Italian boyfriend.
But they know somebody else on TikTok who's like supporting Belgium, so they had a little back and forth. Hey, shout out to TikTok, guys.
Shout out to TikTok.
Gonna cut all of this.
No, this is great. This is good banter. It's good banter.
Shout out to Belgium. D'un point. No, more than that.
Dues.
I've been to Belgium.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Brussels.
Me too. Went to the Tintin Museum.
I went multiple times. I've worked there. I worked in Belgium multiple times over the years. It's a good.
I went to the European Parliament on a school trip.
I went to a bar that had coffins for tables, and that was a little spooky. I'm not gonna lie.
What was the name of that bar?
The Coffin Bar. It wasn't. I can't remember.
Yeah, that felt like that felt a little loose.
They played Papa Roach,
giving you a reason to drink. Kev and I both watched The Tomorrow War. I don't think you would have, Brian. Just based on
didn't know.
Knowing you, not that you were required to. I just don't think it would be something you'd watch.
Yeah. I mean, if we wanted all of us, I'll watch anything. If we're all going to discuss it.
Yeah. The Tomorrow War. Did you enjoy it?
No.
Okay.
Tell me why.
So The Tomorrow War is a new release on Amazon Prime, starring Chris Pratt, J.K. Simmons. I saw Mike Mitchell from the Doughboys podcast in there as well. That was kind of fun. Betty Gilpin from Glow. I'm trying to remember who else was in it.
She's great. She's in a really good movie where I can't think of the name of it.
The Hunted.
Pardon?
The Hunt or The Hunted or Hunt.
Yeah, I loved that. She was brilliant in it. She was, she could, like, she was awesome. She could kick ass. She was, if you haven't seen it, it's very, very, very good. I liked it, but then, whatever.
Did you enjoy The Tomorrow War? You didn't, by the sounds of it.
I hate saying it. I hate saying that whole I wanted to enjoy it. I think I did want to enjoy it, but my God. Right. I actually enjoyed it to a point. And when you first actually see the aliens and all that kind of stuff, and I kind of enjoyed it up until that point, and I thought the aliens looked awesome.
That is something I wanted to come to, because about 4 episodes ago when we saw the trailer for this, I said that the aliens in the trailer for The Tomorrow War look like they have the Edge of Tomorrow problem, where it is an amorphous blob of tentacles and we're not going to actually have any sort of understanding of the enemy. I take it back. They looked awesome. They looked great. They were scary as fuck.
Yeah, they were so cool. I think to be honest, I think I liked a lot. Like, I did like some of it. It's just, it really lacked in parts, and his face just kept on changing. It was just like, it was kind of a case of like, I couldn't tell if it was like Chris Pratt sometimes or whoever, as in like his face has changed so much.
So the concept of The Tomorrow War is it's 2022 and a time portal opens in the middle of a large football game, and a military group come out and say, we're from the future, we're fighting a war against an alien species that we can't win, we need backup, we need more troops, you're going to be fighting for your future, we need volunteers, come and help us. And the world seems to get on board with that very quickly and institutes a global draft that is pulling people out of their communities kind of against their will, with the threat of imprisonment for them, their families, or somebody else. The world gets very fucking totalitarian very damn quickly and starts booting people into the future for 7 days worth of fighting, and then they come back. Whoever's left alive just teleports back to the starting point, with whatever state they're in, missing limbs or otherwise. It's kind of grim. Where did it lose you, Kev? You said you were enjoying that sequence, that first...
where did it lose me? Because now, to be honest, I was watching it pretty late. I had to stay up late, and I was watching it pretty late. And where did it lose me? I think it might have been kind of like when they got out of the first week and were going back in or something, and he was like making his own team or something.
Oh, so that's right at the end, is it? When he's going to Russia with his father?
Yeah, man. Like, I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but it's just like there was aspects of it. I think I really liked, and like there was parts of me that kind of was hoping for more. You know, that kind of way. Even though I had zero expectations going in, and actually, I did like his daughter being in it and stuff like that. Like,
got a little interstellar vibe. Got a little Edge of Tomorrow, a little Tenet, little Battle Los Angeles.
Yeah. I think I think what the best way to say it is like there's like, it's hard to put my thumb on it exactly. I liked elements, and I thought some of it was really fun, and I thought the monsters were awesome, but I think it was just maybe really lackluster. Like, I thought, I don't know, there were some parts of it just really just kind of was just like, ugh.
And I've seen a bunch of negative reviews to this, and I saw somebody going, it's an awful mess of a film. I really enjoyed it.
That's fine though, yeah.
I see what people are saying, setting up that he's a research scientist that can't get work, former military research scientist that can't get work. That's not an impossible position for a human being to be, but it's a little bit of like, there's a little bit of writer's room gymnastics to do to get him to that position. Once they got into the battle, I thought it was really cool. I really enjoyed that. There's some dumb shit in there where it's like, don't try and save them. You were kind of told from the beginning you're just getting people killed doing it. The third act stuff, the final battle stuff, it's just a little like uneven in its rhythm. Like, after that big catastrophic battle that happens in the middle before he comes back to the present. There's just a bit too much time then going, like, I have a solution that will prevent this alien invasion war, and he can't get anyone to listen to him. And I'm like, the whole world turned on its fucking head to fight this aliens because somebody came through the time portal and said, here's what's happening. You've come through a time portal and said, I have a solution that will save it based on what we've just spent the last 2 years doing. And nobody wants to do it? You have to get a ragtag team of people together yourself to do this? It was a kind of a weird moment. Once they got into the action of that afterwards, I was like, yeah, this is fun. I'm enjoying the location. I'll take anything that gives me some J.K. Simmons. But yeah, there's just some stupid shit in it. But overall, if I had gone to the cinema to see this, I'd have come out happy. I'm easily pleased as an audience member. Which is going to bring me to the next thing I watched, which I know nobody watched but me. I watched Hobbs and Shaw on Netflix, and I had a great time. The Rock, Jason Statham, Idris Elba, little Kevin Hart cameo in there in the middle, where he just shows up and he's just like, can I join the team? They're like, no, we don't like you, you're small.
Did they say that he can't join because he's small?
A little bit, yeah. Like, look, short people just aren't as useful.
Big mistake. Wolverine's small.
Okay. I think there's something to the idea that while this is a movie in the Fast and Furious universe, I don't think Vin Diesel got as involved with this.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Sure, is it him and The Rock who have beef in real life or something, is it?
I mean, much is made of the beef between Vin Diesel and The Rock, but you don't know how much that is. You're talking about two people that are used to running their own franchises, and maybe it's just make the most sense to put The Rock. Universal making these movies was just like, look, we've got two huge action stars here that want to make their own version of these movies. Let's just put another one over here and leave them alone, and get them away from Vin.
I have a little tiny soft spot for Vin Diesel, but it's very, very minute. Like, it goes against my better judgment, that kind of way. And I don't really like his movies and stuff. I think I just liked some of his movies at the age I was watching them, and
Pitch Black,
fun movies. Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick.
You like Pitch Black?
Love him. Yeah.
I don't even particularly like Chronicles of Riddick or Riddick. Pitch Black.
And I love the video game was brilliant.
That was a good game. Escape from Butcher Bay, or isn't that it?
Something like that. Yeah, made by Tigertron or one of those, his production company.
Yeah.
But I kind of like, there's like, it's like, yeah, I kind of. I have a soft spot for him, but he's a goober. This is a good way for this conversation to go, because there's not much to talk about Hobbs and Shaw other than it's just fun explosions, and like I always go back to, this is a franchise built around the thievery of DVD players, and now we have a cybernetic former assassin Idris Elba with a transforming motorcycle fighting a Samoan army on the back of a truck.
I've got a problem with just the sort of, I'm baffled by like the acceptance of these as being like fun, dumb movies, because it just feels like to me like that there's been some sort of fucking, I don't know, is it marketing or is it like a fucking psyop or something? But the fact that there's so many things come out and it's just like, this is bad, it's it's weak. It's by the numbers, it's shit or whatever, but these get a pass for some reason, and they're really not, for me, they're not what people. I remember the marketing push around Fast Five, or Fast Furious 5, whatever that one was called. I won free tickets for it. There was a pre-screening event in Tons Road Cafe?
We've covered this on episode 7, I think, but keep going.
Yeah, there was. It's just weird that there was this huge push for that. And like, I still insist as well, like it's pretty rare these days for a box office success to exist without a huge marketing push.
Yeah.
Marketing is massive. It's an entirely separate budget now. And anything that reaches, big numbers, it's dependent on this marketing push. And Fast 5, I was prepared to get back. I think I saw the first one when I was 17 or something. I must have been probably too young to go drinking because it was a Friday night, and I went to see it with Pete, and just didn't like it even then as a teenager. I was like,
it's a fascinating. Sorry, you finish your point.
But sorry, no. The point being that like I kind of saw that one, and it was pretty much all I could do on a Friday night, and it was very much marketed as it's cars and it's girls, and it's supposed to be aimed right at me. And I went and I saw it, and I didn't like it. And I think by the time the second one came out, I maybe saw it on TV, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is bad. And then the third one was bad, and then there was this big push with the fifth one where it's like, hey everybody, these are like crazy, dumb, fun. It's almost like they kind of sold it very much the way like John Wick or Fury Road gets sold, in that like it's about the spectacle of the stunt work and stuff. And the fifth one wasn't even that, because it was so CGI heavy. And again, there was a huge marketing push. I got free tickets. There was kind of food and drink beforehand. I went to see it, and I was like,
but
this isn't great. And since then,
How was the food?
not good. But since then, there's just been this narrative that they are big, dumb, fun movies. And it's like, they're not that fun. They're not entertainingly silly. They're bad. And I just don't understand, like, you know, they make a Hobbs and Shaw then, and that gets a pass, and things related to that universe gets a pass, but everything else is just judged much more harshly, and I just don't get it.
It's
baffling to me.
It's not a case that I don't get it. I want to study it, because
I'd be fine if they genuinely were just kind of silly, dumb, fun movies, but they're not even that.
But we're talking about 100 years of cinema. We're talking about the ensemble film from like The Magnificent Seven, The Dirty Dozen, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, where we get a cast of people that everybody knows into it. And we saw...
But do people even really know? Like, it's only recently that they've gotten somebody like Helen Mirren or Charlize Theron. It's only in the last 2 or 3 installments they've even gotten this. Before that, it's been very, very low level kind of.
But we're now talking about a 20-year journey that people have been on with this fucking thing. So there are people who have watched these movies when they were fucking 10.
I don't see it that, because you can say the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a journey, and it very much is.
Yeah.
There's a consistent thing. You can't, just because these films have been around for 20 years, to say there's a story or a narrative that's been maintained doesn't hold up.
I'm not saying that at all.
Oh, I know. But
the narrative is the franchising.
What I mean is, I see people say that what you're saying, and it's just not true. Like I see that there's writers I follow on Twitter, and to me it's just that same thing that happened with Snakes on a Plane, where everybody was like, "Oh, this is brilliant," except nobody went to see Snakes on a Plane. But it's pretty much that thing that everybody's just bought into this narrative, where it's been a very successful marketing
I think
narrative that people have bought, basically.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
And I don't know why they've bought it.
It's the McDonald's-ification of the action movie, right? Like we would have seen, you know, an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie every fucking year or every 2 years through the 80s and some of the 90s. And what they've managed to do here is, like, rather than trying to build 10 different films, they've just gone, what do we need? We need a bad guy, we need a heist to do, we need a car chase, we need whatever. And let's just keep making it with the same fucking cast of people. The tone they managed to set, like, if The Expendables was this audience friendly, we'd be on Expendables 15, but The Expendables was leaning into the 80s hyperviolence thing as well.
But even so, like, why have audiences bought the marketing narrative? Like, how has that worked?
See,
because
I know. I don't necessarily think that the broader audience gives it as much thought as us in any any way. They just go, I'm going to see an action movie.
But what I'm saying is, even critics have essentially bought this narrative, where there's critics who, you know, my taste aligns with theirs so closely on so many things that like these movies.
Yeah.
And I don't, and it really does feel like they've essentially just bought this. Look, I mean, there's a lot of talk about just even sales, just the broad term of sales, and like people don't necessarily buy the facts of a thing; they buy the story around it. And I've seen that in so many different versions of, like, working in bars and stuff. I've had reps come in to try get us to push a product, and it's never about the product. It's about this story they've made up around the thing, and it's not about what it tastes like or what it is, what it goes well with. You sell something with a narrative and a story or whatever, you know. And that's what I'm saying is that's what they've done with this, is that they've pushed this idea that they're fun, exciting, and they're just not. And
but I think there's an element as well.
Critics have left them off the hook. Like,
I've given out about the Star Wars franchise, say, for example, where I feel that, you know, Kathleen Kennedy gets a lot of shit from like online nerds about, you know, oh, she's ruining whatever, and I think that that's misplaced.
What did Kathleen Kennedy?
She's one of the like original producers of Star Wars and Indiana Jones and stuff, being with the 70s, and she was the head of Lucasfilm.
Head of Lucasfilm.
I'm not sure if she's still.
And why do people blame her?
Because
misogyny.
Well, ultimately misogyny, but I think if George Lucas was there, he'd be the person we were blaming. It's just whoever's in charge gets fucking blamed. I think an argument I've made for the problem with the Star Wars franchise has been that the people making these films are making the films that they want to make, which is what they've been doing from the 70s. Like, even George Lucas sitting down to watch or write the Phantom Menace or whatever. He's not a fan that saw these movies and then read the comic books and played the video games and wrote extended fan fiction and kept track of X, Y, and Z and whatever. So he doesn't want to see Mara Jade. Like, he's not looking forward to seeing her on screen. He just wants to write the movie he wants to write this week. Whereas, to bring this back to Fast and Furious, so much, I think that they, between like Fast 4 and Fast 5, started listening to how their fans were enjoying the films and started catering to that, which is like bringing back fan favorites. Like, they definitely heard people say people want Han. So much has been made of like, oh, the next one they're going to go to space. Like, that's been a running joke for fucking 4 years. And
yeah, no, I get that.
It.
I get that, but I'm just saying I don't understand kind of how, like you said, broader audiences aren't thinking about it as much as we are.
No,
sure,
they're just seeing an action movie on a Friday.
But I don't get how there's been this. To me, it feels like this mass hypnosis where they've just sold it as these films are what they are, and you kind of leave your brain at the door and you go in and you enjoy them. And I'd be all for that if they were actually entertaining. But what I'm saying is, like, okay, broader audiences kind of go see it for whatever reasons, like you compare it to the kind of ensemble casts and things like that, sure. But I just don't get how people thinking about it to the extent we are. Like, how have they fallen for this kind of narrative that's been pushed?
It's interesting because
baffles me.
I could go and see an action movie with Vin Diesel, with a car chase, with a ludicrous jump off a bridge and a land on a boat, with a whatever the hell else, and it's like, that's an action movie, and I'll just go, it's fine, it's an action movie, whatever. But when it's Dominic Toretto in Fast 8, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, what is he doing now? I'm fatigued by what this character has done in his life.
I understand why it worked for, let's say, Aquaman. Like, when I started watching that film in the cinema, I was kind of rolling my eyes in the first 20 minutes. But then there was a point in it I was going, I can see this being a big hit, because like the kind of kids around me and stuff were just loving it. And there was this manic throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Yeah. And for the most part, it then pulls it off, and it
maybe
is,
that's it. Like the kids of it is like, what we have now is a perennial rite of passage for a 14-year-old.
But I'm not talking about the box office success. I'm kind of saying then that there was a huge marketing push anyway for Aquaman also. But what I'm saying is, I can understand, like, that was Justin Lin. I can understand the same being said of Aquaman, because it kind of felt true. But I don't understand it that it's just been accepted so broadly for the Fast and Furious franchise. It just kind of baffles me. But because the thing is like, on the premise alone, I'd be up for watching Hobbs and Shaw, right? But I saw a bit of it and I was like, no, it's not good. Like, I'm up for a team up between two action heroes going up against a comic book villain, Idris Elba. Like, I'll absolutely watch that. Based on the premise, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like dumb fun. But from what I saw of it, I was like, it's not good. Like, if it was what it was supposed to be, what it's selling itself on is Statham and The Rock not taking themselves very seriously, going up against Idris Elba, who I think is great, and he's playing a villain. And yeah, I want to watch that movie, basically. And then from what I saw of it, it's just like, no, this.
Now, what you saw was trailer?
No, I've tried watching it in installments before. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just, it's not that. Like, I would happily watch a film with two action heroes, from the kind of 80s mold go up against. There was a line in the trailer that kind of stood out to me, and I was like, that sounds fun. I think they referred to him as like a black Superman. It's like, yeah. It's like that's
at a certain point at the end, in the middle of a fight, there's like a fucking suplex or something, and you just hear The Rock go, "Here comes the kryptonite." I laughed so hard. I enjoyed this movie. 10 out of 10, guys. Watch it.
The short version is, I want to watch a film like this. I want to watch a dumb, silly action movie with Statham, The Rock, and Idris Elba as the bad guy. But
it's there then. So
it's not. It doesn't work.
What are you missing? When you say you watch the opening sequence where
it's just not entertaining. For one, I didn't find it entertaining. It's not. It just doesn't do it for me. Like, it's not.
That's fair. It's just that, like, it's paint by numbers. It's paint by numbers action movie stuff, So opening sequence, set piece, they're trying to hijack a thing and steal something or other, and then Idris Elba comes out, there's a fight, and then an escape, and we have to go and get our heroes, right? It's like all of those ingredients work on paper, but you're saying when you see it on screen, no, not for you.
Yeah, like there is a sort of...
Ryan Reynolds was in it?
There's a kind of a convoluted aspect to it where it's just like, just deliver on being a fun action movie, but instead it's kind of dumb, but not in a... I don't know. It doesn't really flip the switch in my head where I can go, okay, I'm switching off.
Would you have... See, the thing is, I can't, in good faith, like, make an argument that this is a good movie that you should watch and you should like. I'm just trying to sort of engage in some again, hypotheticals here, going, like, if it didn't have any Fast and Furious association,
no,
and was the same movie.
I guess, like, what started me talking in the first place was just, like I said, I feel like there's this mass hypnosis that is going on with this franchise that I don't get.
But are you annoyed at that? Like, are you...
No, I'm just kind of fascinated.
Are you reacting to that when you see a Hobbs and Shaw? And
no,
going, I'm not going to buy into a Fast and Furious thing.
No, because like I said, when I first heard about that, and when I heard that line from the trailer before I'd actually even watched the trailer, and it made me laugh, and I was like, I want to get on board with this, and essentially what they're selling isn't what I'm seeing at the end of the day, and what kind of started me talking in the first place, fucking 10 minutes ago, was that I'm fascinated by, it's like the Emperor's New Clothes, essentially. They're kind of saying it's one thing, and I'm going, oh, cool, I'll check that out. And then when I see it, I'm like, that's not what they promised. Like and I don't understand how critics largely have... There's so much goodwill towards this franchise that I don't know where it's come from, because...
And that brings me back to like Kev's point, where he's just like, he has this grain of affection for Vin Diesel, and I have that as well, off the back of, like, I saw Pitch Black in the cinema 4 fucking times, and like it had I can't remember her name. She was in Farscape as well. Oh god, I'm trying to think of the whole cast of that fucking film. All of a sudden, I'm blanking on it. Keith David is in it, I think. I loved that.
Cole Hauser.
I loved that movie.
Keith
David, yeah. What was the name? Claudia Black. I loved that film. I saw 4 times. So in my head, fucking right, Vin Diesel, one to watch. And he got stuck in Fast and Furious land. And I think, like, it's something that's helped him. I think he did the first couple of Fast and Furiouses and tried to move on and didn't get the fucking traction he wanted. So he came back to the well, and the well just keeps fucking bringing up water. And he's just stuck there now. Like, that's where he is. And that's fine, but, like, it is kind of a... Like, I used to like Michael Bay movies. I enjoyed Bad Boys. I'm trying to think of other Michael Bay movies, but like, I was on board with Michael Bay films, and then he just got stuck in Transformers land. And there is an interesting question to put to a creative person going, you got into the film industry to make films, and you have now stuck yourself to a point that, like, yes, you're making a film, but you can't be creatively satisfied by these things, but they do give you $100 million every year. So I'd be very curious to talk to the person that's doing this. Or maybe Vin Diesel is just passionate about Fast and the Furious movies and wants this to be his legacy. Maybe again, like, Michael Bay is passionate about Transformers movies.
I don't even mind all of that. Like it. I remember, I think Bad Boys 2 came out around the same time as The Matrix Reloaded, roughly. And I remember people talking about how Bad Boys 2 was just like this great action movie. And again, it's the same thing. It was kind of like Leave Her Brain at the Door. It's a great action movie. And it's like, it's not.
It's not.
It's not at all. It's fucking terrible. And it you know, I think it's a good point, is that they occupy very much the same space as Michael Bay movies. They're less obnoxious. They're less sexist. But it's very much the same thing in terms of a spectacle that isn't really an entertaining spectacle. And that's kind of one of I mean, that's probably a good comparison, is that why do these get a pass, and why have people bought into the story we're pushed about them? It's baffling. Fury Road wasn't a box office success. If people are into the Fast and the Furious stuff, why?
I think there's an element of, we're fixating on the filmmaking and the art, and you know, being sort of relatively engaged audience members, and these movies do huge overseas, as far as, you know, like Asia and fucking Eastern Europe and whatever else, you know, and they're not the
there was even a point where these were like car movies, you know, and they're not even that anymore. Like, they're,
but they definitely hit on something as well, where like I can see the point in their lifespan where they hit on, like, Top Gear was huge worldwide as well, and there was a lot of like modding cars to do things, and suddenly Jason Statham is driving a fucking car that's a wedge that flips cars over, you know, and it's like, okay, like they brought that like A-Team shit to it as well. They just make money is ultimately what this is, you know, and the audience that's going to watch them. Like, you brought up Bad Boys 2 there, and it reminded me, I guess, of like this idea that like there's such a balancing act with action movies of like, you can do ludicrously big things, but it's tough to keep the audience caring about it. By the time the Will Smith and Martin Lawrence were like invading Cuba with a fucking SEAL Team 6 behind them, I was like, what in the fuck is going on? Whereas the first Bad Boys, when she witnesses that murder in the living room, it's just a guy with a gun killing a woman, and it's like, this is a dangerous person, and I suddenly care. In the same way that, like, not to even get into the conversation about it at all, we watched Extraction last year, and around the same time I watched Close with Noomi Rapace. And the opening scene of Close is two attackers and a bodyguard and their charge in a car. And it is very small, but the threat is very real. And the tension is very real. And we care about it. And an action movie can fucking expand to the point where, like, it just becomes noise. Like, one of those last Transformers movies, I honestly fell asleep, like, and woke up and they were in China, and I was like, I don't know how they got to China, and I don't know how they got in a car and then teleported to Hong Kong. It was just boring. Like, millions and millions of dollars to make the biggest spectacle they could, and I was bored. So check out Hobbs and Shaw. I give it a watch. So that's Hobbs and Shaw. Anyway, definitely set itself up for a sequel. I mentioned Ryan Reynolds pops up in it, but they talked about him as if he'd been in it previously. I haven't watched the last two Fast and Furious movies, or maybe Fate of the Furious and Fast 9's coming out now, so I haven't seen Fate of the Furious.
It's the guy who directed Deadpool 2, though, isn't it? Directed it?
The Hobbs and Shaw?
Yeah, I think so.
David Leitch, I think was the name.
Yeah.
I don't think that's... Oh, Deadpool 2.
2, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that's probably all it was.
Oh, that's why Ryan Reynolds pops up.
Yeah, sorry.
Because they acted as if they knew each other a lot, and maybe they just, lied for filmmaking. It definitely set itself up with a lot of, like, here comes a sequel. I don't know. I haven't heard much about Hobbs and Shaw 2. I'd watch it. Don't just laugh at that as if that says something about me.
No, that's the way you said it. But I was just going to say, I watched that Lighthouse Island that you recommended.
This was a recommendation from Bavine, who was watching things on Amazon Prime, and is a big Jim Henson fan. And the Henson of this is not front and center in the marketing end of it, but I watched it as well. Lighthouse Island, Amazon Prime, 1988 or 89, I think, maybe earlier even.
Yeah, well, yeah.
What did you make of it? 25 minutes, just a short piece from Henson Company.
I liked it. Like, considering that kind of how long ago it was made, it was a nice little twist at the end and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think we should go into it too much because it's a 25-minute short, but like I love stuff like that. It's just a quirky little town. A girl's walking around with her polar bear, and there's weird characters in it. And
there's just a zebra in the background.
Yeah. I liked it. It's good fun. It's nice.
So a man arrives on an island and looks for an old lady's shop to buy a present for his fiance, who he's never met in theory, and strikes a deal with her for the silver slippers that she has if he helps her retrieve a pearl from a shape-shifting warlock person on an island. It's a 25-minute short. It's live action with a bunch of Henson puppets in it. It's mid-80s. It's got a like round the twist vibe to it, where it's like little 100%. Like creepy music that's like, this should be a happy, nice day, but this music's a bit weird.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd watch it again, but I think if I'd watched it as a child, I'd have been fascinated. And I think that's where Henson Company sort of lives,
Yes. Yeah, I think that's fair.
What did you... Yeah. And...
It was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun, yeah. It was good stuff.
Yeah. I've talked a bunch about it there. Have you ever even heard of it, Brian?
Don't think so. It's not ringing a bell.
You see, it'd be nice if it was kind of like... No, don't get me wrong. It's fine the way it is and stuff, but it just has that real kind of like... 80s fantasy, nostalgia, kind of practical effects and all that kind of stuff. And it's nice. And it's kind of just like potentially could have made for a great feature-length movie kind of thing, like, or something. But it is. But I like it the way it is. It's fine. But like, it was a cool little, like, yeah, as you said, Aidan, it's like it kind of did have kind of like around the twist kind of vibes and stuff. But yeah, it could have been a cool episode in an anthology of stuff like this,
Well, that's more what I think. I wonder if I guess it warrants a little more research, because the Henson Company is really fascinating with the stuff that they did. Everybody fixates on the Muppets, but like the stuff that they do for Farscape. Like, that's a sci-fi show that I absolutely loved, and I have loved since secondary school at this point. Like, just weirdo alien puppets and creepy leathery things. And I'd be curious to see if this was like a pilot for Lighthouse Island, where
some description,
something weird happens each week with these weird cast of characters. You can kind of see the ending coming, but then they also pivot on it a little bit as well, and like you see the ending coming, but you don't see, or I didn't see actually how it would end. If that makes any sense.
I didn't see it taking that turn in terms of
So that's a good shout, Kev, to talk about it. Yeah, because we did watch it. Yesterday was a busy day for me watching things. Lighthouse Island on Amazon, 25 minutes. If you're feeling Henson Company retro, like, I'd be curious to know about the history of it a little bit more. Like, it's pure kid fodder. Like, the acting is wobbly, but like, it's got that pantomime.
He looked really familiar.
He did, didn't he? I kept thinking it was like a little bit Kyle MacLachlan-y, a little bit like Robert Patrick Leonard, or Sean Robert, the guy from House.
I know kind of the first guy you're talking about, Kyle MacLachlan or whatever. Yeah, but it's like he had such a look of somebody.
Little baby Martin Sheen as well, but
I think his fiance had a look of somebody as well. Can't remember. But like, it's fun if you want to try and fucking struggle through Amazon's search.
The amount of stuff that is actually on Amazon that you will never find. Amazon is it's potentially, it's not that it's as I say this, it's the best streaming service with the worst search options. Like, it's not that it is the best streaming service, but like, there is gold on there and you just will not find it. You have to somebody has to tell you to go and check something out on Amazon, because I don't know where you're going to fucking find anything. Which always brings me back to, if any of our listeners have not watched Patriot, there's 2 seasons on Amazon Prime. It is one of the first Prime original shows they made. It's In Bruges meets Burn After Reading. It's great. I love it a lot.
You love it, yeah. You've often recommended it to me. I've not watched it yet. But oddly enough, I have recommended it to people off the back of your recommendation, purely because you have.
Yeah, cancelled after 2 seasons because nobody found it, but it's there on Amazon and it's great. Loki. So we are post the spaceship that they were going to fly away on blowing up in front of them. They're still left on Lamentis. The world is coming to an end. They're talking to each other, and the act of accepting one another, or like Owen Wilson's character seems to imply there's a romantic angle between the two of them. I don't know if that's the intent, but acceptance of one another creates a divergence in the timeline that makes them easily found. Such a significant divergence in the timeline which I thought was kind of clever, that they get found. There's a bit of interrogation, bit of fighty. They meet the timekeepers. Spoilers like crazy here if you haven't watched it yet. Super big spoilers. The timekeepers prove to be animatronics, so we still don't know who's controlling it. We say that, but like, they cast Kang. We're fairly certain it's Kang.
Brian was wrong. It's not Richard E. Grant.
But I could have seen how one of those timekeepers could have been Richard E. Grant in that costume as well, or just even a voice, in the same way that like the guy from Love Hate was Obsidian, or what's his name, the Maw, or I forget the characters' names. Owen Wilson gets pruned. Loki gets pruned, and we have a post-credit scene where we realise that doesn't mean you're dead. He woke up in a world surrounded by other Lokis. Was there 2 post-credit scenes?
No.
Just one, okay. I can't remember.
So that's the summary of the episode.
I enjoyed this episode, definitely. I think Sylvie is much better in this episode.
Yep.
Did you see that thing online? I think she posted it on one of her social media things. Sophia Di Martini, I want to say her name is, but I could have gotten
Di Martino.
Di Martino, sorry.
Martini,
she actually just had a
drink.
child. That's whiskey. Is there whiskey in a martini?
No.
No. Huh, I knew something. Speaking of drinking, I guess it's an odd segue I'd never really wanted to do, but yeah, she was breastfeeding during this, and the person who created her costume or outfit for the show made it more had made it
Nursing
easier for her
friendly
to,
is the term.
Yeah,
The costume was
yeah,
nursing
more
friendly,
nursing
so there were 2 zips.
yeah. But I think that's brilliant, you know. But fair play to her, like my God, you know, Jeannie Mac, that's a tough job alone. Never mind having to be like, you know, on set in costume, retakes and in such a kind of ridiculous world where you have to be like, I have to be in this headspace and have to completely just like, you know what I mean? Like it's a tough one. So fair play to her. That's mad. But yeah, I did enjoy this episode more. And I asked you guys to remind me about something, and I forget what it was. But it was something like, somebody says you brought 2 variants here, and now you brought another one, or you've already lost 2 variants, and now there's another one missing or something. And it's just kind of like, it's like who's the 3rd variant, or what's that? Like, now I could have completely misheard it. I'm kind of crap for these things, but you know what I mean. I have no idea. It just implied that there was like previous variant, or do you know what I'm talking about? Did any of you pick up on that?
I do have a notion of what you're talking about, but I think
what it was is that you brought a Loki here and they escaped, and now you've got 2 Lokis here and you want to talk to one. It's like, it was bad enough when you had one. It's bad enough when I let you talk to one. I'm not letting you talk to another. I think that's what it was.
Okay. And somebody said, you know, like, these Lokis are giving us so much trouble, and then someone gives him a dig of like, and you brought a second one into the mix.
Okay.
It's a little harsh on poor Owen Wilson. I think he should have been allowed to do his job.
But at least he's not dead.
Well, we don't know. We hope he's not dead.
Well, like, sure,
yeah.
he got pruned. Loki got pruned. Loki woke up.
Aye.
People who get pruned go to a certain timeline. Owen Wilson's not dead.
He's not dead.
He's not dead. Everybody gets pruned, goes to a certain timeline. I want to say C20 or something.
It is funny we're 4 episodes in and we do not know the names of some of these people.
C20 and B15.
But look, I watched.
Keep up.
I watched.
Come on.
But I watched I watched Game of Thrones. Brian was talking. You were talking about like the 3 different names in my here. I give up on like understanding people's names. I just don't remember them. And that's not like that. That's only in a TV thing. I can't remember people's names, where they're from, what they do. Like, kind of, you watch so many of these things nowadays, and it's just like, you know, oh, that's sister
C20.
Yeah. C20. She was great.
Or was it B15 you're on about? You're on about B15.
The lady who the leader of the
B15,
the security team or whatever. B15.
Minutemen, wasn't it?
She was. Oh yeah, she's great. And I like kind of her kind of like taking Sylvie to that world that Brian loves, the
Wet World,
stormy shopping center one.
I call it Wet World.
Wet World, yes. She takes her to Wet World. Well, you know, I thought this was a great episode, to be honest. I thought it was really nice. Yeah. Really, really good.
The time loop with Sif was good fun. Nice to see her back. She has been missed. I did not watch any of Blind Spot, which was a lot like John Doe with Dominic Purcell.
Oh, I watched some Blind Spot.
I think I watched a season of it and I completely forgot it existed.
Yeah.
I forgot
she's been doing that for 10 years.
Is it still going? It's still ongoing.
I don't think so.
No, I think it did 2 seasons probably. The Blacklist is still going, and it's very similar to The Blacklist.
The Blacklist is still going.
Is that the Bill Hader one? Oh, not the Bill
James
Hader.
Spader. James
Spader.
Yeah.
James Spader. That is still going, I believe, yeah. Very similar shows. Very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I first saw the sort of promo stuff for Blind Spot, we're getting off of Loki, I was remembering a Dominic Purcell show called John Doe, where a guy woke up with no memory of anything about himself, but that was like his first big show. He had the memory of everything else, and if he could remember it, he could do it. So he could like play piano and like was a race car driver, and like it was he could do everything. It's kind of
I remember that show. It was
MacGyver type of thing.
Back to Loki.
just think we need more Dominic Purcell in the world.
We don't.
We absolutely do not.
Okay, it's just me then. Blade 3 was the best one.
Didn't he botch his opportunity on the CW stuff, or did
he was very vocal about his displeasure with his character being done with.
Oh,
yeah,
that's fair enough. You can be angry that you got fired.
Yeah, some of his Instagram posts were about how they obviously didn't see the potential in this character, and I'm like, you're the fire guy from The Flash. You're like, yeah, that character was a shade above henchman.
Yes, yeah.
But I do like Dominic Purcell in things most of the time. Loki, good to see Sif back. The loop thing was kind of funny.
I liked the opening shot with the timekeepers. It was appropriately spooky.
Mm.
It was.
What do you mean the first time we see them?
First time we see them, yeah. It was good. Kind of, I think it sold the atmosphere of the moment well.
Mm.
It was good. And then when they're killed at the end and the other two start laughing, it was very, very creepy. It was very cool.
Mm. I couldn't understand a word they were saying.
Couldn't understand a word they were saying.
Couldn't understand a word.
No.
I'm getting a lot of that with like a lot of what I'm watching, and I'm like, is this why older people don't enjoy the movies of the young, because they just stop being able to hear what's being said? Because I feel like I can't hear what's being said.
It's more of a sound mixing thing though, so
I watch everything with subtitles anyway, so
I blame the sound mixing. Great.
it is a sound mixing. It genuinely is. They're mixed for surround sound.
5.1,
yeah.
The fights in this series, I noticed watching the fourth one.
I don't watch for the fights.
I got to
a bit stiff.
Yeah, I had it was my first realization watching this fourth episode, going, fucking hell, these are crap. They are just bad fights. I don't even know how to describe it. There's no sense of impact. There's no sense of intricacy. There's just three people run at somebody, their arms flail around, and then somebody's on the ground. It is pointless. There's no...
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the way they're shot, because you know that stuntmen choreograph a lot of these fights, and they tend to be good at what they do.
Fight scenes are purely a matter of time and rehearsal. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just time and rehearsal. And then if you've got enough time and you can get your actors to do it, if you've got enough time to teach them the parts, you can do that. Otherwise, you just block it in such a way that you never need to see the actors. But even then, if you still don't have a good fight scene, you can always block it in such a way where you never need to see the actors' faces. And if the fight scene is still bad, it just means that it wasn't a priority, essentially.
Yeah.
It's
like B-15 came out of wherever and took on two guards and got her ass kicked, and then there was C-20's fight and Loki was fighting with a sword. I was like, this is all crap.
Yeah.
It was frustratingly shitty. But it got to the point fairly quick after that, I suppose. And
I really think it could have benefited from slightly speeding it up. If they didn't speed it up already, it was very
cut the fights.
slow.
I would just not have them. Yeah. Especially because it introduces that thing I mentioned last week where there's this inconsistency then with the character's abilities, you know?
Yeah.
It's...
Lifted
true,
and
man.
flung a skyscraper the last episode, and he's having trouble dealing with a guy in some body armor. That being said, they've no magic there.
But even so, on the train, he gets thrown out of a train by two people.
Yeah.
You know, when he's got this. Yeah, it just makes no sense. Just don't do them.
What do you make of all of the, like, again, Brian and I are coping with pandemia by the pandemere, as he called it, which was a fun word, through living in TikTok. I saw somebody suggesting that there's a color scheme with every episode that coincides with an Infinity Stone.
I don't think it's deliberate, but it did hold up.
Nice theory.
But it does hold up, but I don't think it's intentional.
So the yellow of the Soul Stone in episode 1 is a very present color in episode 1, and you see him come to terms with a lot of who he is, and then he has a lot of power in the episode that's all purple, the Power Stone. You think it does? You think it kind of holds up, but it wasn't intentional? It
holds up, and it's a nice theory, but I don't think it's intentional at all. No.
Or if it's not even if it is necessarily intentional, is it significant?
It's not significant. No.
Yeah.
It's not what the show's about.
Yeah.
I've seen people really question a lot, like, what was it that Sylvie did that required that she be pruned, and like people are theorizing, and it's like, I thought it was pretty obvious.
She just said it, didn't she?
She asks Ravenna, whatever, and she says she doesn't remember, but like, so people are theorizing about what it is, but to me the show is about the fact that Loki doesn't have to be this role that he's designated for. And to me, my interpretation of the scene, to me it was kind of plain as day, and I could be wrong because everybody I've seen on TikTok, you know, has asked the question, is like, yeah, what was the thing that she did? What did she do that required her to be kind of pruned or whatever? To me, it was, she's playing with the toys and she's playing the part of a hero. And she's making that decision as the child that she wants to be a hero effectively. And then when she gets dragged away, she sees another person being restrained, another variant, and he's in like a kind of a chokehold, and she screams, "Help him." And she gets dragged away. And to me, it's like she's rejecting she's essentially good. She's rejecting the kind of
villainous.
And that's the thing, like, Loki isn't even a villain. He's like he said himself, he wants power, or he projects power because he's coming from a place of weakness and he's getting scared or whatever. But Sylvie would have rejected all those things. She wants to help, and she wants to be a hero effectively. And the fact that she showed then B-15 her memories, and she's very much about setting the people there free. And to me, it was like, that's what it was. It's and then Owen Wilson says to him, you know,
that's the anomaly. Yeah, I get you.
I can't remember how exactly he puts it, but he says, you know, you can be whatever you want to be, even a good guy. And that's essentially what the show is about. It's about rejecting kind of the roles forced upon people and being true to yourself. And then that's why it's such a big deal, because them falling in love with each other is also effectively him or Loki, not him or her, but Loki loving themselves, and not in a romantic way, but in a way where they're actually accepting.
Just no self-loathing, acceptance.
Yeah,
okay.
And they're healing their own childhood trauma effectively, and it's when they accept themselves and love themselves, and that's why it's that's what the show's about. That was my interpretation of the moment where she gets taken, is she's playing the part of the hero with the action figures basically, and they show up right there and then. And I've seen so many people, like, she asks Ravonna, like, what is it that I did? And Ravonna says, I don't remember what it was. She smiles and she says, I don't remember. And I've seen so many people theorizing, what was it she did? What was she doing? It's like, isn't it obvious? Maybe I'm wrong, but to me it was like, it's the fact that they're rejecting the role that the timeline wants them to play. And
do you know, when I saw it, I thought, my head went to a very, like, I was like, they're so petty that she's playing with the toys wrong. You know, she's playing with the toys as a hero. And I had that thought, but I looked at it from a much more small and petty thing. But your interpretation that it is representative of who she wants to be it's lovely. It's a lovely interpretation.
I think that's
the way it plays out.
I think that's what they're writing about. I think that's what the show's about. That's why I like it.
But she does say at one point, a female trickster wasn't acceptable once it went to a certain point.
Yeah,
like,
but
she does bring the gender into it.
She brings the gender into it, but there's still a question on what was it then that I did. It wasn't just the female part. It was, she asks a question like, what was it that I did? Yeah, and to me, it's the fact then, like, that it's that acceptance. It's them wanting to be something else, and then that moment on Lamentis when they're.
I mean, they say over and over, like Sif says it to him over and over and over again. You're an awful little man, full of self-pity. He'll always be alone, and that's his fear, I guess. You know, so we're not quite there yet. But we have 3 Marvel shows this year. We have Loki, we have Falcon the Winter Soldier, and we have WandaVision. Loki is the best thing so far?
Yeah, I would say so.
I would think so.
Um,
Like early straw poll, what order would you put these three shows in
Loki, Wanda, Falcon.
preference? I think I'm the same,
I'm not too sure I put Loki up there just yet, because the last episode left a pretty bitter taste in my mouth.
yeah. Episode 3.
Yeah, in the what do you call it, the party with the purple. But I really enjoyed episode 1. Episode 2 was okay. Episode 3 not so much, and episode 4 was really good. I think it's hard to like. It's like I like a lot of what's going on in Loki, and I probably do think it's like a bigger hitter than the other shows to a degree, in some sense. But I really enjoyed WandaVision a lot, and I really enjoyed Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I loved how Falcon and Winter Soldier finish up with Sam being the new cap and stuff, you know. And I think there was more stuff on the table to discuss, almost to a degree, with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Loki's like playing the long game, like it's slow, and it's like but I think it's going to hit hard when it does hit.
I don't think it's that slow, to be honest.
But I think it's too soon. But it's too soon for me to say in what particular order.
I think WandaVision was much slower, and I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier did a lot that kind of wasn't of consequence in places. You know?
Maybe it's just more of a case. I think I like Wanda better than Falcon and Winter Soldier, although I did like Falcon
I think
and Winter
Wanda's
Soldier a lot.
setting up a lot for the universe. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is talking a lot about social issues that are relevant in America, but Loki is really developing and moving this character forward and making us care about it.
It's moving the character forward, but I also think it is saying something important about the real world in that, you know, I think there's...
Well, you kind of don't have to necessarily meet people's expectations, you know. Just because, say, like Sylvie is a female Loki and wants to do good, it doesn't mean that like,
it's rejecting an
has to-
authoritarian entity, you know, that's kind of wants people to be a particular way. You know, you can you know, see that as the church or government or a lot of things. But no, I think episode 3 would have benefited from... I kind of expected that Wilson would have been killed off when he didn't show up in episode 3, because to me, the only reason to not cut back to him at some point would be because you didn't have him available for shooting effectively. I think that's why episode 3 suffered, is that it was, like I said, it was a pretty short episode overall. I think it's only about 30 minutes. And some important things happen in it, but it takes a long time to get there. It would have benefited a lot from cutting back to Mobius and having him doing something while they're on Lamentis. It would have been... It's funny that the episode didn't feel urgent, even though the planet is literally ending. There wasn't a sense of urgency at all, and it would have felt more urgent if they cut back to him doing something, looking for them, or some other hint coming up, making him suspicious. Something happening in the TVA to kind of... a little thread of mystery for him to hook onto, and for the audience to kind of go, oh, what is happening there? And then to kind of cut back and forth. I think it would have benefited from that. And I think the fact that I think
we could have done the stuff with C20.
Yeah.
You know,
You could have shown us all that. Yeah.
We could have had a lot more of that in that episode. So in the post-credit scene, we saw Kid Loki, we saw Alligator Loki, we saw Boastful Loki, I think is what it said in the credits, and then we saw Richard E. Grant as a very sort of classic comics accurate Loki.
Alligator Loki.
Alligator Loki. Did you not see Alligator Loki?
There was a crocodile one.
There's an alligator.
Missed it. I only saw 3 of them.
Nope, there's 4.
Kid Loki's got an alligator in his hands.
He's holding the alligator, and it's got horns on its
Yeah,
head.
it's a small alligator. It's not a...
Oh.
It looks like a baby one, maybe.
What do we think this world is?
I think it's some kind of junkyard where they send pruned things,
Oh yeah, I
maybe.
see the
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
something close to Sakaar.
Yeah, it like, is it a... Yeah, there's a question, is it a timeline or is it a pocket dimension like the TVA? That's the thing.
Much has been made of the fact that there's an Avengers tower in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I say much has been made. Lots of people have said it. Not much has been made of it. We don't know what it means. something has been notioned of an Avengers Tower in the background.
It's been acknowledged.
I don't know. I don't know what to expect here. Other than a growing rebellion against the TVA. I mean, if you've got an organization that is pruning variants,
I think it's a
dangerous.
As much as I think there's a Kang tease, at the end of the day as well, the show is named Loki, and I think we're kind of saying, well, who is the big bad? And we think the only person left is Kang, but it could also be a Loki, effectively. Especially given that the timekeepers weren't real, and Loki himself said this is a circus from the very beginning. So a trickster recognizes his own work, essentially. Is that what it is?
That's interesting, because then the reason he wouldn't want a Loki to choose the path of heroism is because the path of villainy that he chose led to control of the entire timeline.
Yeah, so like in the first episode, he says, like, is this the greatest power in the universe? And it'd be kind of interesting if it turns out that, he's just come from a situation where he lost to the Avengers to then find out that there's potentially a space outside of all time where Loki's actually in charge. And those things, not just Loki's, but any variance at all, threatens his dominance there. But then that it seems like that story fits Kang better, so I'm not sure what they'll end up doing. I think there's definitely going to be a villain Loki in this, but will they be the person behind
Richard
the
E. Grant
timekeepers?
is a big cast to not use in some version of that. Like whether that's we see an older Loki there, it doesn't mean it's that Loki, but
their line of dialogue was kind of, they said, is this hell? Am I dead? And Richard E. Grant says, not yet, but you will be if you don't come with us, implying that they're maybe a bit more heroic. But
I'm saying
you could have another Richard E. Grant.
You can have another Richard E. Grant that's in the all powerful role.
Yeah. We have seen.
We still haven't seen the president.
Yeah, the President Loki. And is that Loki in the trailer as well? They all turn on him. So everybody in that scene could also be. All those people could also be a Loki also as well. So yeah.
Yeah, like I said, if you think about the numbers at work here, if you're a small organization like the TVA, even if they're not a small organization, and you're pruning variants, at a certain point you're outnumbered by the people you've pruned if you're not actually killing them. If they get a charismatic Loki leader to bring them back into the TVA,
also
they tear that place asunder.
They take variants as workers, so they can always just keep making variants for whoever they prune. They can always just have 2 variants or 3 variants of.
That's true. Maybe they outnumber them.
It has to be Kang, really, doesn't it? Like, obviously somebody who put together 3 robots.
I think if we do see Kang, it'll be like the Thanos reveal at the end of the Avengers. It's not going to be it's not going to be a huge thing. It'll be like Thanos' reveal at the end of the Avengers. Well, don't expect more than that, I would say.
Well, that's how this show could get frustrating, though. Then is if it ends on a sort of like, but who really was running the place? And then there
is also
see
a
shadowy
season 2.
figure, and it's like, oh.
This is getting a season 2.
They've confirmed that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now suddenly I feel like there's going to be no resolution to this.
No, I think there will. I think they know that's a mistake. I think they'll set up another season. Maybe, it kind of made a point last week about being surprised that if this is the MCU's version of the Enchantress, I was surprised that they didn't cast kind of a bigger name effectively. So a second season could be about the Enchantress effectively. I'd watch that,
But I was just going to say, like, the 3 animatronic kind of timekeepers, like, who would do that? It's kind of a funny thing to do, to manipulate all these people into thinking that there's 3 robots or these 3 beings that control time and blah blah. And that could, as you guys are kind of saying, that could very well be a Loki, but that Loki could be manipulated by Kang. And although they defeat that Loki, and that Loki kind of by the end of season 1 is out of the picture, there could be something that alludes to Kang actually kind of pulling that Loki strings. you know, because like Kang, whoever it is an interest in the Infinity Stones.
That's one of the things that like I think one of the potential storylines when you take that character is like it's Kang the Conqueror, right? And if you have a character whose goal is to, you know, be the conqueror throughout all of time, and if they have access to time travel, then effectively they've already conquered time, if you get me. If they're operating without any kind of opposition, then there would be nothing to stop them. So effectively, it would make sense. I think it makes more sense for it to be Kang, and that's why they set up the TVA, because they've already created a reality where they are emperor of all of it, and then any variance or deviation from that creates a possibility where they're not in charge, and that's why they would set up the TVA. It's not about preserving a sacred timeline, it's about preserving their reality where they're, you know, their power. But
very interesting.
To me, Kang isn't trying to conquer time. If the character exists, then they've already conquered time. The story is about how do you displace them. Because if a person like that exists with those powers and abilities, then they would effectively already be in control. So it's not like a Thanos type thing where he's trying to, you know, enact his will, and it's not about how he does that. It's not like an Infinity War where we see him try to do that. Kang would already have done it effectively, because
he's trying to just preserve his own timeline and just create this whole smoke and mirrors illusion where
So I think it's safe to say we're enjoying Loki after the sort of.
I thought it was a great episode.
Last week's episode.
Yeah.
And
I like this episode. Don't get me wrong.
Even last week, I think if we go back, I think I sort of said, you know, it's too short. It's weird. I think it's a moment in an overall whole that we're going to like enjoy in subsequent viewings.
Yeah.
But just it's frustrating on a week to week basis to be left with 30 minutes of. Asgardian blue balls.
Especially when some of the most interesting imagery came from that episode.
Yeah.
But for the episode then itself to not really have a lot go on in it. So it was kind of doubly disappointing in that end that it was shorter and it didn't. Yeah, those images didn't really.
Yeah, there was one shot there where like you just saw the back of Sylvie's head, and with the light, everybody thought it was Natasha.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered Loki. We're coming up to 2.5 hours on this podcast. I know I have a lot of editing ahead of me this afternoon, so I want to start to wrap us up. Trailer wise, there wasn't much this week. There was The Many Saints of Newark, which is the prequel Sopranos movie. I don't know if you guys are Sopranos fans.
Oh, I didn't realize it was a movie sequel.
So it's a movie, yeah.
Okay.
And
okay.
the guy playing
Sopranos.
baby James Gandolfini is James Gandolfini's son, which is a nice bit of symmetry. I can't talk too much about it because I've never watched The Sopranos. I have a firm memory in my head of seeing like the second episode starting on RT and standing in the kitchen going, missed the first one, I'll have to catch up and watch that later. And that was long ago. But it looks good. Hopefully it's a hit for them. I guess I'll check it out. Maybe that's the way for me to get into The Sopranos, or should I watch it first?
Nah, watch the prequel and then watch the TV show.
I mean, let's be chronological. There was a trailer for a thing called Beckett with John David Washington in it. I didn't know what this trailer was going to be, but then I watched it and it had a sort of like, I guess, a film noir kind of vibe to it. You know, man lost on his own, and a little bit of like North by Northwest vibe. Guy gets tied up in something and is just on the run from, can't trust the police, can't trust anybody, and he's sort of lost in Europe. So I enjoy him as an actor. Has either of you seen either of those trailers?
No.
I saw the Sopranos one. Yeah.
Cool.
I think Sopranos is overrated, but maybe we'll talk about that next time.
Okay. There's.
I liked it. I liked it for what it was.
I don't dislike it. I get it. It was the first. You know what? People talk about it saying like it was the first thing in a while.
Oz.
It wasn't the first thing like it in a while. HBO have been making shows like that before that.
I just think I would say it was one of those things that, like, maybe my opinion's wrong and stuff, but I've always, I think, just said that as like one of those things that kind of garnered so much attention and popularity. It showed people that the cinema screen wasn't the only place where you could do epic stuff.
Yeah.
Even though I know the TV shows have done it, but I think that was just one of the moments where it's just
showed people that it's one of the stepping stones that showed people that television can have value. Yeah. But I mean, there's mini series is going like Roots.
Yeah,
there's stuff historically that are big TV events.
Yeah, there was plenty of stuff before that was big and everything, but I think this was the first time. I think this is the first time when not just audiences, but like networks kind of realized they had to raise the bar, essentially. So it kind of raised the standard for a lot of stuff. It's not that it was the first time that TV was of a high standard, but its success was so massive that from that point on, everything else that came was like, okay, there's an audience and there's room and a need to create better shows.
Mm-hmm. Last two things I looked at were there's a trailer for a Mortal Kombat film from Warner Animation, Mortal Kombat Legends. It looks a bit stiff, but it's a Mortal Kombat movie. We've talked about the live action thing recently. Interesting to see this franchise getting a little bit of a push, 2 films in 1 year. And then HBO comedy special from Tig Notaro called Tig Notaro Drawn, which is an entirely animated stand-up special.
That's pretty cool.
Which is interesting. I guess it's the sort of Ricky Gervais podcast concept, which is just like animate the stories you're seeing. Be curious to see how that's received or how it works out. I've definitely talked with people about doing that sort of thing in the past, but it always just seems like so much fucking work for not a huge amount of return. So it's curious to see how this works out. Anybody, any other?
Clifford the dog live action movie. It looks very like scary. A giant evil red dog.
I guess kids would find that a fun concept. I was definitely watching this going, that is a terrifying concept. That's only a puppy. That dog's going to get bigger. It's going to poop. I mean,
it's going to want to eat.
It's going to want to eat.
The poop.
I mean,
it's going to want to procreate and establish its dominant.
How do you neuter a 10-foot Labrador?
You don't.
Like, I can imagine people wanting to make more of it, Anyway, it's good to see that Jack Whitehall's doing well in the film business.
No, it's not.
Is he in it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be doing something with The Rock.
I think he is, isn't he? We saw them working out together on Instagrams.
The Rock is Clifford, isn't it?
Jungle Cruise.
Rock plays the big dog, is it?
Rock is Clifford, yeah.
Okay.
I understand.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay, well then it's probably.
That's not true, just for the record.
I know, yes.
Jack Whitehall's playing Jason Statham's brother in the next Hobbs and Shaw.
Luke Evans already did that.
Oh, did he?
Isn't that his character?
Is Luke Evans in Hobbs and Shaw?
He's in Fate of the Furious.
He's in the one where they introduce Statham, isn't he? Isn't that who he plays?
Oh, is that the one where they do the? I've only watched like, I don't know.
Hey, we should watch all the Fast and the Furious movies and talk about them.
Yeah, let's do that.
Is this one of the ones? Is that the one where they jump from the building in Dubai?
No, that's the last one with Paul Walker. Oddly enough, didn't do much walking. A lot of driving. Hey, the last thing on my list is The Black Widow is out next week. So, in theory, we can have The Black Widow watched before we record next. It's streaming. It's in cinemas. Should we watch The Black Widow before we record next?
What day is it out? Is it out Friday?
It's in cinemas Wednesday.
I'll try to go see it.
It's streaming on Disney Plus, I think, Friday, Saturday. But I think you have to pay an additional 20
something, yeah. I would just go to the cinema, I think.
It's
oh god,
but like maybe if we record on Sunday, it gives us Saturday to just get an angle on it. And
yeah, let's record on Sunday because I have to do something on Saturday. So
So what we're going to try and do then is we're going to
Sorry,
try
Loki.
and get the Black Widow watched, so that we can come and talk about that after it.
Yeah, I might try get up early on Friday and go to cinema and see.
Yeah, it's showing in IMAX, 10 in the morning, 10 past 10. I will not be able to do that, but that's the plan, boys.
Kill.
That's the podcast.
Kill.
Quick closing question. You watched The Cottage, Brian. Did he kill her?